Are we broadcasting?
We are.
Okay, so I'll call the meeting to order at 6:04 p.m. Tim, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, Tim. So the first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the special meeting from August 11th, 2023. And there are a number of abstentions. I wasn't there. Bill wasn't there, Tony and Vanessa. So hopefully we have enough people to approve these minutes without those four. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting?
Barbara moves.
A second?
Mike seconds.
Mike? Okay. All right, with those abstentions noted, all in favor of approving the minutes of the special meeting, please signify by saying aye.
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 And are there anyone opposed? Okay. So the next order of business is the approval of the monthly business meeting minutes from August 17th, 2023. There are two abstentions, Bill Cooney and Tony Rivera. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the monthly business meeting?
Vanessa moves.
Okay,
Barbara seconds.
Barbara.
I have a question on the minutes, Kathy.
Oh, okay, sure, that's fine.
Sort of a proposed correction, and I seem to have, and it's my fault, not anyone else's, but I seem to have misplaced the minutes, but I think it's on item K, which is about the trunk or treat. And Natalie had left our meeting due to another commitment when we discussed this last time. So we had a motion to close early on the 30th to accommodate the trunk or treat. But the explanation says that if it rains, the event will be on the 31st. The actual plan is that if it rains, we'll move the event inside on the 30th. So while the motion was correct, I just wanted to let all the board members know that the supporting information is not exactly correct, and that's my fault.
Okay, so let's see.
Just to clarify, as it's written here, that's how it was actually presented at the meeting. It was
Right.
just, okay, this is just correction of what the actual plan is.
Right.
I mean, this reflects how it was actually
Discussed.
described.
Yeah.
So no change to the minutes is needed,
Well,
because then we would be changing what happened.
oh, I see. Right. And the resolution itself is factual. It says close early on the 30th.
Correct.
That's all it says. So.
Okay, so
So
with
we
that
may wanna
correction, the
Sorry,
that-
Kathy, I just wanted to suggest we maybe want to record in these minutes for this meeting today that Tim added that clarification so that it would show up in these minutes in the summary for
That
this
makes-
meeting, not the ones we're approving, just to be clear.
right, because that's a little confusing because that was a discussion at the meeting, so yeah, that's fine, that it will reflect that we discussed that the rain date is actually the same day, what is it, the 30th, that it would just move inside, and that there is not a separate rain date. So that the minutes for today would reflect that change.
Yes.
And with that, we have a motion, motion and a second, for the monthly business meeting minutes. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, passes. All right, the next order of business is public input session. Is there any public input for this meeting?
At this time, there's no public input to report.
No public input. Okay. Now I gotta find the personnel actions. Maybe someone else would like to read that because I think I have it on my phone. Well, let's see.
I'm also looking for them.
I've got
I've
it
got
here.
I've got it. Okay, the personnel actions are to approve the appointments of Jacqueline Avery from provisional to permanent full-time fiscal officer in the administrative department effective August 29th, 2023. Nate Hire, full-time assistant director 3 for circulation and collection services in the administration department effective September 25th, 2023. And Song-Hyun Ailey, part-time library assistant in the circulation and collection services department effective September 25th, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve the personal actions so stated?
So moved, Corey.
Second, Norina.
Okay. All right, all in favor of the approving the personnel actions, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed?
No.
Hearing none, passes. All right, we have the treasurer's report for August 2023.
So Kathy, I'm not sure if you received this email. I think maybe just Corey and I did as finance committee chairs, finance committee chair and director. But George is unable to join us tonight due to a social commitment that he was reminded of. You can guess by who. But at any rate, so I think what we've done in the past is just, I'm happy to answer any questions about the check register, and George in his email did say that nothing is particularly, I'm not looking at the email, Corey, do you remember?
That there's nothing particularly unusual in the financial statements. Everything's pretty straightforward for the month and most likely didn't need a lot of clarification.
Okay, and I think we all have that. All right, so the check register for September 2023, Tim and Corey, you're saying that there's nothing unusual about the check register and that you're satisfied that it accurately reflects the checks written for that period of time?
Yes.
Okay. All right, with that, do I have a motion to approve the check register for September 2023?
Almost.
Who was that?
That was Barbara.
Barbara, okay. And second?
Second, Vanessa.
All right, thank you. All right, all in favor of approving the check register for September 2023, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, it passes. All right, Tim, you're on for the directors and department heads reports.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So I'm going to start with something I don't normally do, but if you looked at your mailbox today or earlier, you found this beautiful annual report from the Upper Hudson Library System. And the Upper Hudson Library System has a lot of statistics in the back, but in the spirit of equality among the 29 libraries, they don't rank them. So I got curious and I looked at where GPL stands in relation to the other 29 libraries. And as my colleague Natalie likes to say, this is not a competition, but we had better be winning. So quick report on that. Local support category, this is how much money per capita the library's getting. We are 5th in the Upper Hudson Library System after Bethlehem, which is expected. And then, in my opinion, 3 unexpected libraries, Voorheesville, East Greenbush, and Castleton. In operating expenses, we are 4th out of 29 after Bethlehem, Voorheesville, and Castleton. Circulation, we are 11 items per capita per year, which is 7th in the system. East Greenbush actually leads with 28 items per member of their community, or 4, not quite 4 times what we do. Bethlehem 22, Altamont 19, a very strong showing by our neighbor. Castleton 21. Adult programs, we had 232 adult programs, which places us 3rd in the system after Albany, which had 308, and East Greenbush, which had 256. Adult program attendance, we come in 4th after Albany, Bethlehem, and East Greenbush. Our library holdings, this is the number of items in the collection, are up 8% despite heavy weeding going on throughout the year. And we have 7 items in the library for each person who lives in Guilderland. The high is East Greenbush with 13. Interestingly, there's a large suburban library to which we've often been compared in recent years that is not Bethlehem, that has only 3 items per person in its service area. So that's kind of interesting. In unique borrowers, we have 6,094, which places us 3rd in the system, behind Albany, which has 10,000, and Bethlehem, which has 7,200. The number of public computers, we have 20, which puts us 4th in the system. Again, Albany, Bethlehem, East Greenbush. I think one of the stories here is East Greenbush is a better supported library by its community than I was thinking of prior to doing this comparison. Public computer sessions, we had 3,400, which is 4th after Albany, Bethlehem, and East Greenbush. Hours open, we're 3rd in the system with 3,400 hours after Albany, which is open 13,605 hours, but that's 7 facilities. And Bethlehem, which is open 171 more hours a year than we are. In annual attendance, we come in 4th at 91,300, and that's after Albany, Bethlehem, and East Greenbush. I'm sorry to keep repeating those names. We are also, you can see in these tables, a net lender. All of the big libraries will always be net lenders to the system, because if you compare a big library like us to a small library like Castleton, we have more stuff to lend. But interesting numbers, we received last year almost 34,000 items from other libraries, but we lent almost 60,000 items to other libraries. And the systems are built both in terms of physical items and electronic items to fill requests from Guilderland first if they came in first. You know, like, so if I, as a Guilderland patron, want a book and I request it tonight, I get it before the East Greenbush patron who requests it tomorrow morning. But if that East Greenbush patron requests it tonight and I request it tomorrow morning, I get in line. So that's how that works. So just wanted to cover those stats real quick because I know some of you are seeing the beautiful booklet for the first time. It's kind of a narrative report, but it does get into stats. And we're not winning, but I am proud of our showing there in the way we stack up. Like, we're often 3rd or 4th, but you know, we're one of the 5 or 6 large libraries. So we're and it's very hard to compete with Bethlehem on any of these, or excuse me, Albany on any of these, just because of the size of their collection, physical plant, and service area. So back to my regular monthly report. The cafe actually opened August 31st, so I could mention that in this meeting, which is about events from August. So far, it's going very, very well. Craft fair, just I want to put a couple things on your radar in person. Natalie keeps sending emails, but the craft fair will be October 22nd from 10 to 2. And the staff committee, called the Sunshine Committee, is doing that as a fundraiser, and also a New York City bus trip on December 2nd as a fundraiser. The Sunshine Committee is how we raise money so that we can do birthday cakes, flowers for people that have had maybe a death in the family, new baby gifts, that sort of thing, because we obviously can't spend public funding on that. So we do various things to raise a little bit of money. Passport service has started back up, and Natalie has a good report on how that's working in her monthly report. Natalie and Christina Ronald have started a new book club called Fright Club. And the first rule of Fright Club is that you don't discuss Fright Club. However, I'm going to break that rule because I just wanted to call it to your attention because they're not just doing, run-of-the-mill horror books and movies. These are real classics, like Tonight is Dracula by Bram Stoker, The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which some people think might be the best novel ever written. And in December, actually, the Christmas Carol, which actually is a ghost story, if you think about it. So also Trunk or Treat is coming up on Monday, October 30th. And urge all of you to consider decorating your vehicle and joining the festivities outside. It will be fun as always. Shifting over to the report prepared by Luann. She and a couple other staff members went, as always, to National Night Out on August 1st. Luann has recently joined the Guilderland Chamber of Commerce because my term ended. And it's really, really great to have somebody on the chamber. And one of the big things that she was promoting over this last month is the live virtual author talks that we've been doing in that collaborative effort with the foundation, which paid for half of this. 46 people viewed them live. There were 3 of them, but 1,218 people viewed all or part of one of the recordings. So that's quite a few people in a town of 36,000 people. And by the way, no criticism implied, but I was in a meeting within the last month or two with some board members, and somebody wildly misstated the number of people that live in Guilderland. So for reference, the number is 36,000 and change. In the circulation department, most circ is up slightly. Audiovisual remains 24% of our circulation. And I always like to point this out because there are people that I talked to today who don't own a DVD player, who only do streaming. But when you talk about serving a whole community, there are quite a few people who still depend on that kind of technology. And also, I always use the example of presidential elections. If there's a presidential election coming up, Netflix will curate a selection of movies about the presidency, and it'll be available for 2 or 3 months. And then when the election's over, they just go away for 4 years, but they're still out here. So if you want selection, the public library is really kind of the best place to go. We have this new community outreach department headed by our veteran department head, Maria Buell. They've done some fabulous things that I hope you read about in the report. But one of them is they're doing programs now with the Mohawk Hudson Land Conservancy, which is in charge of 22 parks, if you will, or nature preserves. And so they had a hike in Altamont out to the Bozenkill Preserve and Falls that was well attended. I also did the stuffed animal sleepover and story time in that department. And then really kind of exciting to me, I started here 10 years ago, and I don't remember the publication date, but 12, 13, 14 years ago, there was a bestseller called The Incredible Life of Henrietta Lacks. Some of you have probably read it. Henrietta was a woman whose some cells were harvested from her body by researchers at Johns Hopkins without her knowing it. And they had always been trying for like 100 years to get cells to reproduce in a test tube, but human cells never would. Hers did. So they're actually behind every health advance since about 1940. Polio vaccine to the COVID vaccine to genetic engineering. And 2 weeks before this book discussion started, Henrietta Lack's family won a class action lawsuit against all the companies that have been using these cells, and finally got compensation for their mother's really kind of revolutionary role in medical research. So that was cool. The Youth Services Department, under the new leadership of Brianna Wakowitz, really scored a tremendous success with the summer reading program. The stats are in your report. 246 kids were logging their reading. 2,200 books were logged by kids from pre-K to 3rd grade, and 1,200 more by kids from 4th grade to 12th grade. And over 1,500 people came to 40 plus programs, all while they were 3 positions down. And you'll see in her report that we have been able to hire 2 librarians in that department, Genevieve Getz and Sarah Russo. So welcome to our staff for them. If you're spending some time in the library, they're doing tremendous displays of books, a subject that we recently talked about a little bit. But right now, for the first time in my 10 years, there's a staff picks display. So I really like this. It's like you see in bookstores where people write what they liked about a book inside a bookmark. And there's also a really clever display put together by Elizabeth Smith called Don't Miss Out. And these are books that were written in 2020 and as a result didn't circulate very much because of COVID, but they were good books with staying power. So that's just kind of thoughtful stuff that they're doing. The IT department is really working hard right now. I've got a list of things they're involved with that will be necessarily incomplete, but they're improving our cash management system, giving our customers more options to pay for copies and for bus trip tickets and so forth. Improving our video security system, wrote or adapted some existing software so people can schedule their own passport appointments. They're migrating our server to a new generation, as well as things that I can't really explain to you, but they sound interesting and important, like replacing our legacy network backbone, all of the computer switches in the building, and the firewall, which of course is the most important thing in many ways. Also, we're going to be installing what are basically iPads outside of all the event rooms, and they've written some software that can automatically go and tell you on a screen display what's happening in that room that day without any human intervention. And this is currently something that Jenna does. It's a little bit laborious. So investing a little bit of time right now, but then it'll run itself, which is kind of a good thing there. And they also report stats in IT. So over this time last year, we've got substantial increases in Wi-Fi usage, self-checkout, website visits, patron print jobs, and public computer uses. I didn't want to quote all the stats. So there's a lot of good things happening at the library. And then just, I hate to end on this note, but I just want to thank everybody who's been involved in selling books in the parking lot and point out that this Sunday is the last day of the farmers market. And if we do want to sell books, we're going to need more than the one person who's volunteered to do that so far. And so that's just a gentle reminder. You'll probably get another gentle reminder in your email tomorrow, but it's a great way to connect with patrons. So, and plus you get to go to the farmers market. So that's what I've got. Thank you.
Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Kathy,
Yes,
I had some questions for Tim.
sure. Go ahead.
You mentioned a number of things that we've discussed already, but you mentioned that Brianna in her report had such a turnout for the story times.
Mhm.
And the question that I keep being asked is, when are we going to have story times on weekends so that the parents who work all week long, can enjoy being there with their kids?
Mhm.
And I know we've talked about it before. Is there any possibility of that ever happening?
Well, and full disclosure, Barbara and I talked about a few things earlier this week, that it was nice of her to call me and say she's got these concerns. But at the same time, I don't remember weekend story times being one of those subjects we talked about. So when I heard from you earlier today that you were going to ask about that, I did some quick research, and we have tried both evening and weekend story times before, and we're not against trying them again. Typically, we don't get the same turnout that we get on weekdays. And that is, we think, for weekend days, we think that's because, parents and I, we've both been them, I'm still one, but it's the sports games day, it's the yard work day, it's the, maybe a family outing day. So we have found that even though I shared that opinion when I had a toddler, many people don't share that opinion. Also, while we're willing to give that a try, our current staffing model has, kind of a bare bones crew here on the weekends, just enough people to provide reference resources. So it would require, reallocating employee schedules. I spoke to Brianna about it maybe 35, 40 minutes ago, and she was like, well, we'll see what we can figure out. But historically, we have not found that people really want it, in terms of attendance. And that is also what the neighboring libraries tend to say as well. Like it's a natural assumption that you're going to want Saturday story time, but then when you try it, people don't really come. So that's where we're at the
Is
moment.
it possible just to, have a sheet or something in the children's area to say, we've talked about this, is there any general interest, or am I just hearing from a few select people that
Sure,
want to have just toddlers, don't have the kids that are in sports and stuff
Right,
already?
right. Yep. Although,
Sometime they will.
well, they will.
Toddlers have weekend activities
Yeah,
now.
Yeah.
toddlers, that 4-year-olds playing soccer and, basketball. But anyway, yeah, we can research with our patrons and see if there's interest. Absolutely.
And the other question that I had, we have two scheduled disaster preparedness type workshops for our patrons. And I guess the staff was a little concerned as to why the staff safety committee has been eliminated. And, is there a manual, or is there plans for a manual for certain things? And the other thing, I know, we've had like active shooter training, and, a few other things. Is there anything else that's available, like from the police department or
Yeah.
the library association or whatever, that
Yep.
we could provide the staff with, how do you deal with this emergency or that emergency
Sure.
type of thing?
Sure. So first of all, the staff security committee has not been eliminated. It's been downsized from 11 people to 4 people. Secondly, if staff are concerned about something, they're supposed to come to me or to HR to express their concern. So the operation of an internal committee, according to my training, is not a matter for staff members to go to a board member to ask about. We communicated the downsizing of that committee. We told people why. And my feeling is that whatever staff member is talking to you was not happy with the reasoning that we provided. And again, if that staff member is watching, please feel free to try again. And as Sarah points out, if you don't like the director's decision, you can go to HR for further perspective on that. But the reason we downsized from 11 members to 4 members is that the meetings were a bit chaotic and basically nothing got done. So we've been able to do a little more with the 4, but they are complex issues. So as I mentioned to you earlier in the week or last week, whenever we talked, we did have the police chief and the community engagement officer come, and they spoke about a series of programs that would be available to us. And then since you and I talked, I did reconnect with the police department and the paramedics, the EMS department, and each has offered 3 workshops that include active shooter. They include basic first aid, CPR, and Narcan training. And then for the police, they include active shooter and I think the other one is bomb threat, if I remember correctly. And I just want to get together with my 2 union presidents to make sure, because these are going to require either opening late or bringing in staff early to get the training done. And I got the feedback from the police department and the EMTs since we talked, but I haven't had a chance to talk to Maria and Emily yet. We have only done limited like fire drills since COVID. So we need to get back on that schedule kind of thing. But, and I'm sorry if I'm being too direct, but like if people don't like a decision that the director and the assistant director have made, I'm so sorry, but you've hired us to run the library. And, I'm an open person. I don't mind that somebody's gone to you, but as you remember from the phone call we had, I didn't ask you who it was. But I think this is a good opportunity to make the point that, sometimes I've been criticized by this board for not managing decisively enough. And then I manage decisively enough. Somebody goes to you and says, I've got a problem with a decision that's been made. Well, there's 65 people that work here and somebody's got to make the decisions. If that person is listening, you can come talk to me. You can go talk to Sarah. You can talk to any board members you want, but my answer is going to be, I'm doing the best I can and what I think is right. So.
The other question was, and again, I'm not here, so I don't know if this really has happened, that there was a movement about 5 or 6 years ago that I think you created to have meetings with the department heads. I don't know if it was weekly or monthly, whatever. And again, apparently those haven't been productive, but can you share any reason why, or is it still in the offing, or
Sure.
where are we at it with that?
So
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but, and I just feel like, that might not be a board thing, right? I just want to clarify, is that something that it's in our purview, why not you have certain meetings? I just, for my
I was gonna
knowledge.
say that as well, but then in the interest of transparency, if the board is interested, I'll be happy to address that.
I am in agreement with Alicia. I mean, this feels like a conversation that might come up when we're evaluating your performance
Mhm.
annually. And, you know, in fairness to you, I mean, I don't, obviously, I hear you that Barbara gave you a heads up, but I don't know if you were prepared for this particular question.
I am,
So,
yeah,
but I also don't know that I agree that it's something that needs to be discussed. I don't see the relation to the director report.
Right.
So if there's no further discussion, Tim, did you have anything else?
Yep, I have one more thing.
Okay.
And this, you may not agree or not, but apparently there are many instances, so I hear, where there is no administrator available in the building. I know in the old days, you had a sign out thing on the board back there as to who you would turn to in the case of an emergency or not. And since we've talked, has that been sort of reinstituted so that they know who's in charge?
Well, we do that by email now, and we open at 9:30, and by 9:30 every morning, every department sends out an email saying who's here and who's not, and every employee has access to email. In terms of there being some periods when administration might not be available, there's always someone admin here. And I do have members of the administrative staff currently under doctor's care while seeking diagnoses. And the doctors have said you should do a little working from home. That doesn't mean they're working from home all the time, but we tend to have more administrators here in the afternoon because of the situations that I'm describing. But there's always someone from admin here, and then the email. We can put up a sign if that makes staff more comfortable, but I have authority from HR to allow these medical exemptions. And I probably even shouldn't say, I may have already said that there's more than one, but I don't want to talk about individuals. But we're trying to get to the bottom of some health concerns, and hopefully we get to the bottom of them, you know. But there's always someone here that, and also we've got very good attendance from the IT department, which is right next door to the admin department. And so we often will have Sean, the head of that department here, you know, first thing in the morning as well. So I am not, I'm not all that concerned that, you know, that there's a dramatic lack of availability of administrative people in the building. But there's a couple of stresses on it right now that are hard to deal with, so.
Yeah, it seems like a kind of an indefinite question as well. I mean, because it's not at a particular time, you know, so I think maybe we should maybe move on from this discussion.
Well, Kathy, can I just have one more question that should be clarified? In our appointments here, put on another assistant director, and we're still hiring a department head for circulation and collections. In addition to that, what is that new AD going to be in a union or considered administration?
Administration. And it's actually, we're combining 3 positions into 2. So I don't want to use names, but we used to have a head of CERC and a head of technical services and a head of collections. And we now have those 3 positions into 1 assistant director who's in admin and 1 L2 who will be running, running tech. And they will work together to kind of oversee that joint department. But at the same time, we'll have 2 assistant directors, each with 3 departments of the library reporting to them. And while I'm not positive that our new department heads type structure will work, what we're going to try is having each of those halves of the library have a weekly meeting. Because the large weekly meeting with 10 department heads, often we'd be discussing things that only apply to maybe 5 of them and wasting the time of the other 5 of them. Then I have to be frank and say that that group, like I have always tried to manage in a very, you might say, sort of democratic and consensus sort of way. But to my mind and to the mind of the newer administrators here, that group has become essentially unmanageable and unproductive. I've tried 3 times in my 10 years to get everybody to draft and write and create and sign a pledge of how we would treat each other professionally. And it just doesn't work. So we've decided that that department heads group was counterproductive and people would be leaving in tears and in anger and, it just wasn't working. So the model with the 2 assistant directors will help also with the admin scheduling issue because Nate Hayer, the new assistant director for this side of the building, is going to be working 2 days a week and 2 nights and a weekend day. Unique scheduling situation at home, and that's when he's available. So we're going to have actually essentially not quite around the clock administrative coverage, but administrative coverage in the evening for really the first time ever and on weekends. So I think, as I said to you on the phone, I think that change is difficult for anyone. And I think that it's incumbent on the existing department heads to trust the administration, give us a chance to try to make things better. And as I said to you on the phone, if the thing we're trying now doesn't work, we can always revert to the previous structure. But maybe this will be a way to say to certain people, I'd really like you to be polite to one another. Like 10 years is a long time to, take the beat down of that weekly meeting. And that's how it feels sometimes, and it's been discussed, but it doesn't change. So,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
All right, anything else, Tim?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to committee reports. Alish, building and grounds.
So we should have a doodle poll coming out for our next meeting. We have some topics to finally discuss again after a nice break since the cafe stuff had wrapped up, and that was sort of our big undertaking to start out with. So I'm happy to say I did go to the ribbon cutting. There was an amazingly huge turnout. I was actually shocked walking in the room because I didn't think I was in the right place with the amount of people in there. So just letting everybody know, we had a giant showing from, like, Tim can probably jog my memory, but like town board, I was
County.
there. We had former board members. There's
That Fahey was there.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, so it was really great. And I think there's going to be a second ribbon cutting with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce that Mel's coordinating as well. But I have stopped in a couple of times just to see how they're doing and make sure things are kind of running smoothly. And I've gotten really great feedback from patrons who have attended. So I know we have a couple of regulars already, and we've been featured on 518 Foodies and like different blogs and stuff like that. So that's super cool. I expect the buzz to continue to generate and drive traffic into the library, which is great. And that's more or less my update on the cafe. And then farmers market, like Tim already said, we're rolling into our last weekend. I've been at most of the Sundays, and we have some familiar faces that come by every week. There's new folks. I've reminded them that we will have used books sales basically essentially every day now going forward, now that the cafe is there, and people are really stoked about that. So we've had really good feedback from, our patrons about that added benefit. Plus, they really like the used books. I would say we're maybe one of the more popular tents at the farmers market. So I do want to say, like, that's been going well, and thanks to all who have volunteered, because I think for some folks it's their first time meeting a board member and they don't really know what we look like or who we are as people. So I think this kind of humanizes our board, which is great, and builds that trust with the community. And that's my farmers market update. So I don't think I have a lot more than that, other than up next on the agenda from Tim, it looks like we're going to be discussing possibly the mural project, just making sure things close out with the construction grant and everything smoothly, and we're tying that off. And I don't know. I think that's the main thing, is like sort of odds and ends. No huge cafe type projects anytime soon, but yeah. So
Elise, we had, and I haven't had time to update you on this, but we had kind of a, not sure if I can say this, but sort of a come to Jesus meeting is the expression, with the landscaping firm that has not finished its landscaping work related to the reconstruction project. And so they're on their final strike, and they agreed to complete all the work within the month. And we'll see what happens. But if it doesn't, it's basically planting a tree in this planter, putting a couple bushes out in the peninsula, and putting paver stones over by the sprinkler room so that firefighters don't have to run on uneven ground if there's a fire. And if these things don't happen soon, another company will be chosen. So.
okay. Yeah, no, good call out. So any questions for me on building and grounds? Alrighty. So look out for the doodle poodle, as Narina says, and that will be out in the next week.
Great. So
I think
Corey,
it's Barbara.
long range,
Sure, I'm just gonna roll through my reports because they're all in a row. So there is no report from long range planning. We have not had a chance to meet yet, but I hope to get us going in the next couple of weeks. The finance committee met. I sent out the minutes from that meeting. But the big things that we talked about were board designated funds, and we're going to work on putting together a plan for that. And also just some discussions of the ongoing financials and considering our investment strategies moving forward. You can see the complete minutes. They came through your email. So that, unless there are any questions about finance, any additional questions or comments? As far as the audit goes, there's not a whole lot of news to report. We're waiting on a couple of things to be completed for us to go forward with the audit. We have lost a member of the audit committee, and so we are still currently seeking a new member that has to come not from the board on the audit committee, but we hope to get those things finalized soon. Any additional comments?
Question on that, characteristics of the additional.
I think that ideally it's somebody that is CPA or has a financial background and can really help dig into that stuff. Am I speaking correctly and accurately on a helpful member of the audit committee?
Yes.
Do you have a suggestion?
I'm not sure. So I just wanted to understand the parameters you're seeking.
So I don't know, I know you had a busy day, so I don't know if you saw my email with Neil Banerjee, who serves on our audit committee, but I was checking in with him to make sure that he is still a member, and he is. He said, I have a little hiccup, want to run by you. He said, he had moved to Voorheesville, but I checked the bylaws and there's no residency requirement. Plus, he lives in a portion of Voorheesville, which pays Guilderland taxes. So, and really made my head spin. According to him, he lives in a portion of Voorheesville that pays Guilderland taxes, but the kids would go to the Voorheesville school. So I'm not sure that that's correct, but at any rate,
I think,
so.
yeah, and we can connect afterwards, Vanessa, but I think, it's somebody that has some understanding of finances, so it's not coming completely fresh.
Right.
Jackie, you looked like you had something to add to that.
I don't have any people, I know we discussed at the meeting of someone who was looking into contacts, so we could at least get that through. Yes, and the building project itself is what was like, we were trying to get that done, which was holding up part of the audit.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will be.
Just a couple of things.
And besides, as soon as possible, is there like a time frame, like an upcoming decision or action point that would require this additional person?
It would be nice to have an additional person in place when the audit is prepared and ready to go for presentation. So hopefully that will be soon. But the audit committee doesn't meet.
October, November?
Yeah.
And yeah,
Okay.
yeah, sorry,
I'm
I've
just trying
been
to
hesitant to
understand
like
all the
say a
things
month.
if I'm gonna ask somebody,
Yes,
sort of like what.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think, and it's not like the audit committee meets every month for the
Yeah.
whole year. The audit committee meets when the audit is correct.
Basically, they usually meet twice, once to receive the initial report from the auditor, and the second time with the board to explain that they've reviewed the report from the auditor and tell you what the concerns are, if there are any, and, thought I had something to add there, but it's really not, if you are a financial professional, it's really not a taxing thing, is my opinion, because it's usually only 2 meetings a year. So,
Thanks.
so.
I will let you know.
Okay. Any other question on finance or audit? Comments? Nothing. As far as Upper Hudson Library System, we had our September meeting in conjunction with the expedition party, which was a lot of fun. In particular, the Guilderland Library table was always busy. I didn't even get a chance to say hello to Luann because every time I walked by, there was a crowd around them. But it was really successful. It was amazing to hear from everybody that was so excited about having visited all these libraries, to meet all these people that had done all 36. It was really fun to see them, how proud of themselves they were. Alicia had also volunteered. Natalie was there volunteering. I know a few other, Maria, Luann, I know there were a few other participants, but it was just a lot of fun to connect with just sort of the broader library community and see, and meet people had posters. They had selfies at every library they wanted to show you. It was just a lot of fun and really helped sort of feel this connection throughout the system. So you all should attend in the future when UHLS has some sort of event like this, because it's a blast and it's nice to get that encouragement that the library is doing great things and is really meaningful.
And I did not get to go, but I went to the last one, and you meet a lot of trustees, you meet a lot of enthusiastic library people, you meet a lot of staff members, and like one thing that librarians are always talking about is that we visit, and you guys may as well, but we visit other public libraries like when we're on vacation, and unfailingly you come up with a good idea, so. And
they do this expedition thing?
about once every 4 or 5 years, so,
Yeah,
so
we're talking about,
maybe
I
it's
think
speeding it
3
up.
to 5 years in the future
Okay.
is sort of what the board and staff of UHLS have been talking about.
That's awesome to hear.
But there is a plan to do it again, just not like, I think everybody needs a break. It won't happen every year. And I should mention that Marcia also volunteered.
So if you got a gold library card last time and a platinum library card this time,
You don't even know.
yeah, I mean, like a plutonium, no,
I'm in.
chocolate
Chocolate.
library card.
Is the most valuable. So I am done with my reports, Kathy. Barrel through.
Okay, that was a lot of reporting. Thanks, Corey. All right, policies, Norina.
All right, my turn. So I'm not sure if everyone got the policy committee minutes. I hope that you did. They weren't in my package, but apparently they should have been in yours. And when I wrote this, I wasn't as tired as I am right now. So hopefully you read it because it really explains how UHLS sees challenges to our collection and displays in general. And so when Alicia and I attended the training on August 24th, we took a lot of notes, and we were given a packet of templates that we should be using when we're faced with challenges to the collection or other materials, programs, displays at the library. And so I used that the policy committee used that template and added a little bit to it, for the board portion of for the board involvement, I guess. And we presented that in your packet. So what that is, what the process would be is if someone has a complaint about any kind of material, display, programming at the library, whether they want something taken out, taken down, program shut down, whatever, we give them this form and they should, fill it out. And the director then meets with a ad hoc committee for that particular challenged item. So if it's a display, it would be the head of the department that arranged that display along with a few other members. They would discuss the challenge, and based on the criteria that are discussed in our general library, what is it called? Collection policy.
Yeah.
They would determine whether or not, that person is correct. In the minutes that I put in your packet, it does indicate what kind of policy we should be taking of freedom of everybody's choice. We are not not responsible to protect individuals from ideas. That's their own responsibility. And the same goes for the children that are in the library. It's not the library's job to protect them from materials they might see. It's the parents' responsibilities. So having said that, the policy committee has unanimously agreed to present the reconsideration form that's in your packet for voting. It looks like that. I should say, as part of the process, after the decision is made, if the person is not happy with the decision, we did add that the decision can be reviewed by the board, but only to determine if the committee has not taken an arbitrary decision. So as long as they followed the criteria listed in our material in the policy, I keep messing that up, collection, then the board really has no choice but to approve their decision. And I should mention that UHLS did not suggest that we have that board approval of the process, but it was suggested at the policy committee meeting that we add that in, so we did. And so the reconsideration form is in your packet, and we should have a motion, if anyone wants to make a motion to vote on that. Before we do that, I want to say that your materials also include the collection development policy, that I think has just additional language about the materials that are subject to challenge, and that the criteria pretty much applies to any material in the library. I think that's it.
Okay, so, so you had some recommended motions. The first one,
Yeah, the
is
first
there,
one,
is there a motion to approve the request for the request for reconsideration form as recommended by the policies committee? I believe that's attached to the,
Before you do
everyone
that,
should have that.
supposed to is, if I'm not mistaken by the bylaws, you present the policy at one meeting and you vote on it on the next meeting. This should be the discussion phase right now, versus actually voting on the policy.
Well,
So
I think you had, a long discussion on these type of policies that at the special meeting, which I watched. So I think, these have been changed, based upon the, recommended forms by UHLS, but I mean, it's the same kind of, form. So, I mean, I don't see any reason to delay this. I mean, it sounds like there was a really long discussion about
I
this.
just wanted to ask a clarifying question. Is the request for reconsideration a procedure or a policy? We distinctly refer to the collections development as a policy, and this one is a form?
It's a
So I'm
form.
trying to understand,
It's a form as part of a process.
so not a policy.
Correct.
So would not require the agent that a policy would require.
Can I just clarify that? We've discussed it before. It's only bylaws amendments that we were required to present at one meeting and wait until the next meeting to vote on. Policy changes, we don't have to do that. We've discussed before that as a matter of kind of good practices, it's a good thing to do that, but the only things we're required to present ahead of time is bylaws changes.
Great. And as far as the actual policy here, this isn't the first time that the discussion has come up.
No,
for
this
that.
is the almost identical thing that we discussed at the special meeting.
Right. And so I just wanted to, I guess my question about the distinction of the request for reconsideration, if it's a policy or if it's a procedure, does the board vote on library practices and procedures?
Well, I mean, the board has a say in this particular one because it was suggested that the board did have such a say at the policy committee meeting. Initially, the form, if you look at it, was cut off like this information where it says the board of trustees and all that, pretty much from the first page on to the second part that talks about the board of trustees determination, that wasn't in there. So I think
Okay.
perhaps if,
I'm just trying to make sense of how it fits into.
Wait,
Yeah.
Can you just, what was, say again, what you just?
so initially, what was recommended by UHLS is just these initial 2 paragraphs talking about what the library policy is. And then just the questions for the person that's complaining about. But then this paragraph that starts with, if the library determines there's no action needed, et cetera, up to the board of trustees determination is final, up to that sentence, that was added because some members of the policy committee felt like we should have an oversight after the internal library committee makes the determination on the reconsideration of the item that's being challenged.
And then we'll have something to review because the form is submitted first to library staff. And if they deny it, the request, then they have, according to this form, they have 14 days. The person has 14 days to submit a copy of the original request and the director's reply together with a statement saying a request and appeal to us.
Yes.
So that's, I guess that's the addition to the UHLS process. So this is just a form that I think updates our existing form because to encompass, I believe, all kinds of challenges, including to displays and the like. So
Yeah, displays and exhibits were not part of our original form. And then based on our prior discussion and like the alert that was raised by, UHLS and other folks that this could be a potential liability and a loophole that has been used because it does kind of fall through the cracks between collection and exhibits, including the display. Norina and I attended the training and it did seem like statistically the amount of exhibit people contesting exhibits and things like that, displays and things like that has significantly increased. So I think it would behoove us to make sure we are covered in that regard. So just my 2 cents as someone who also attended the training. It seemed like our initial concerns were validated by that training, that it is something we should really address and hopefully not push off another meeting.
all right, is there a motion to approve the request?
So moved.
Cory.
Okay, Alish, and is there a second?
Oh, I think Cory, did you move?
I just moved.
And then
And I'll
Alicia seconded.
second, yeah.
Okay, Corey, all right. So is there further discussion?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I'm still, I guess I'm sort of parroting a little bit of what Ted said at that special meeting. As I read this, what is the purpose of this review? Because it basically says that you have no hope. It says here in your notes, it's only to review access to the materials, not the materials themselves. And I think, basically, I think Ted said something to the effect that then anything that the library personnel decides, as long as it conforms with the, with what they believe fulfills the collection criteria, is godlike, that there is no challenge. It says right here, you have, the only thing, you cannot challenge the materials themselves.
Correct.
But to safeguard access to materials and ideas for all people. And we have no responsibility to protect individuals, including children, from ideas. That is the job of the individuals themselves, the children's parents. But there is nothing that you can hang your head on as a citizen to really challenge a book or a display or whatever, because it's already been approved by.
It hasn't though, and that's the thing, that's exactly, my report says exactly what the UHLS policy said and what we were told at that 2.5 hour training, is that we are not to circumvent materials, we're not to restrict people's access to any kind of material. And that should be the library's policy, as long as it complies with the criteria that's listed in the collection development policy. And that collection development policy does talk about things that the staff have to take into consideration when buying a material, displaying a material, talking about a material, researching it for a patron. So that is exactly correct. But they can challenge it if it doesn't comply with those criteria. And that's why we have this ad hoc committee. Tim would go to the department head, and then they would choose 2 or 3 other people. They did suggest to keep the number of the members of that committee small, and determine whether or not that material, that display, that program fit within the criteria of the collection development policy. And if it did, then they would write a letter. Tim would write a letter to that patron explaining why that is currently staying in our collection. And then again, if they're not happy, they would go to the board, but that's the process they suggested to do. We are not to restrict people's access to ideas. That's not our job.
Well, there's a difference in the minds of community members. In the old days, I guess we used to talk about community standards. You know, do you really want your money? And this was going back a number of years, you know, when Playboy was the dirtiest thing that you could possibly think of. And, you know, should taxpayer money be buying that material versus, you know, a classic or some modern day popular book? And so the community had some part to play in what they wanted their library to do. And I just don't see how there is any hope for any community member to change anything in the library that the staff has determined that they think fits the standards as they lay them out. So
Well, aren't
I
they the
don't know how you would
experts?
fix that, but I just don't understand how you can say that you can't challenge the materials themselves when, you know, there have been some successful book challenges. Sometimes errors are made and, you know, with the selection of a particular book.
But
or
I think
whatever.
that's what the process is laid out to do, is that committee can look at it and say, we shouldn't have bought this book. This book is. And
Right,
can
and
I,
I think the criteria is listed here: diversity of our community, equity of access, inclusivity, variety of ages, recreational user to the serious student, lifelong learners, educational, cultural, and civic activities in our communities. I think.
And then just to put a finer point on that, section 5, maintaining the collection, materials that are worn, damaged, outdated, inaccurate, those are items that can be removed. And it says materials may also be removed from the collection through a reconsideration process. That would require the ad hoc committee to evaluate if it meets the criteria set out in our collections policy. of which someone could challenge if it was outdated or inaccurate information.
And you can enhance the collection too by adding stuff into the library that you feel it's missing. So I feel like there's a lot of avenues spelled out here. And I think Kathy said it, it was very short and sweet. Like these folks are experts in their field, and it's fine. And I think it's good that our patrons do have a voice and they can use this form to voice that. But ultimately too, like we have a lot of, what do we have, 60 staff? You know, these are all like thoroughly trained individuals. So I trust that they'll make like sound decisions and will be open and receptive to feedback if maybe something was missed, and that committee will address it. So I would disagree and say like there's no hope here. Like if this was authoritarian, we wouldn't have a process at all. We would just say too bad. So I think this is a good way to have a voice in terms of books that we might be missing from our collection, or opinions that are, you know, something that we should be reflecting in our library and reflecting our community, as well as having a means of removing things when they're no longer relevant and don't meet that criteria, which is spelled out here. So you could do both through this process. So
we have it broken into two separate motions.
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second for the first one to approve the request for reconsideration form as recommended by the policies committee. So maybe we should just take a vote on that first one. I'll take a vote.
I would still like to speak on this if I can.
Okay.
So did you want to go?
I have a comment, but
This is the form. This is the motion.
I understand that, and between the two, I know that the policy we're going to get to in a minute, the collection development policy, I have no issue with the collection development policy. I'm fine with that. My concerns are all directed to the form. And this is just maybe it's a minor thing, but I think it's a little odd how we've kind of embodied the appeals policy into the form, and it's not like the appeals procedure. Like currently right now, we have a policy that's a separate, we have a collection, whatever materials and collection development policy. We also have a separate policy about challenges to the collection that it stands as a policy, but now it seems like we've replaced that with something that's just embedded in a form rather than a specific policy about the appeals process. So it's a little strange to not have that be a policy itself, but just to kind of embed it in a form. So, but that's just
thank you. That's aligned with what my question was,
Yeah.
is this being a procedure, this being a policy, procedures usually outline how you behave according to a policy, but we haven't looked at the corresponding, what is it called currently? I don't remember
I was just looking at it a minute
The
ago.
request for reconsideration.
Uh, It's. Sorry. You know it's in there somewhere.
Well, he's looking,
yeah,
can I just add one thing? Normally, that would be a policy, the form would be considered an exhibit.
Okay, I mean,
That's
that
the
can
way-
be changed. I don't have a problem with that.
Right now, we have a form that's called request for review of material. That's just a form, but then there's
And there's a
also,
corresponding policy.
there's a policy that I,
We just want to true them up.
Yeah,
That's all.
yeah,
I don't think it's a big deal.
yeah, it's called procedures for complaints regarding library materials.
okay.
So that's
Separate.
and that indicates like the timeframes you have to, you submit your complaint and then the time frame to appeal it. That's in this policy, and then there's a separate thing that's just the form that someone would use, request for review of material. And we've kind of lumped them together into like the policies kind of embedded in the form.
Right.
But-
And so is this new form a form in response to both policies, it feels like, right? There's a little bit of collections in here and a little bit of, what's the other one called? I'm so stuck on the name of that second policy.
Collections and development.
No, the one you just looked up.
Oh,
I don't know why I can't remember.
I just lost it. It was called something about procedure for requesting, procedures for complaints regarding library materials. The procedure just tells how you request a review. And then we have a form, and then there was the material selection policy, the old one of those. So we've got this new,
Material selection is different than the collection development.
well, it's just a new name.
Okay, that's the same.
It covers the same idea, but it's been completely rewritten. So,
Right.
we had currently we have three different things. There's the material selection and collection development policy, which is being replaced by this new collection
Right,
development.
it's
policy.
collapsed into
Right.
one.
Well, it's just renamed and reformatted. So there's the thing that we're now calling material selection and collection development policy is being renamed as just collection development policy, but it's the same, it covers the same.
Understand.
And then we also have procedure for complaints and a form, and those have been kind of lumped together into this one, like the procedure has been kind of embedded in this new form. So it just seems,
So I think we can change that, or we can add this language to the procedure for complaints regarding library materials that you just suggested, and then use this as part of the form. I don't have problem amending that.
right, I mean, well, this is, yeah, I mean, this is different from the existing one, so it would be replacing the existing
Yeah.
policy, because this is not what our current policy is.
What does the current one say?
It says, the library will provide a request for review of materials form available separately to anyone objecting to materials in the collection. All objections will initially be reviewed by the director, and if necessary, the board of trustees. Each person filing a written request for review of materials will receive a written response from either the director and or the board of trustees within 30 days. Which is, I mean,
I don't think that's replacing this. This is just saying
It's adding
what's gonna
additional.
happen, right?
this is completely different. I mean, this has a 14-day thing, like deadline for people to
That's if,
appeal. It's like,
that's to
there's-
appeal.
right, there's no
So we
appeal.
can-
It's-
The appeal
that.
procedure to that.
Yeah, we can amend that or change
Yeah.
that to do it. But I'm just,
Yeah, that's fine.
but anyway, I had more substantive concerns. That was just the format kind of thing that it seemed weird to lump the policy in with the form, but
Can I just
Yeah.
add to that before you
Yeah,
go on
that's
to the
fine.
content?
Yeah.
And then similarly, I think this, either the determination, the appeals determination, if that gets added to the other one, or this one, since it's mentioned here.
Yeah.
It's just not in either of the policies, it's only on the form. So I
Right, so
want to
we'll
make
just
sure.
put that in.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
just so that it's in one or the other, but in the collection development policy, it mentions the request for reconsideration resource form, so I don't know.
That's it. That's this.
Right, no, I don't know if just in that vein, you want to mention the appeals here also, since it is process is mentioned here, like.
I don't think it's needed. I think if we put in the procedure for complaints regarding library
As
materials.
long as it's in one, that's all
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay.
so my more kind of substantive issue with this, and I'll try and be very brief. I know I said a lot of this at our previous meeting and also in the policy committee meeting, so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but my concern continues to be the conflation of display, the procedure for displays or policy toward displays with collection. And I think that they're very distinct, both as a legal matter and just as a policy matter. They raise very different concerns, and I think it's wrong to conflate the two. And one thing here, in the introductory paragraphs here, it says, the trustees of the Guilderland Public Library have established a material selection policy and a display/exhibit policy. But we don't have a display policy right now. We do have an exhibit policy, but that's for outside, that's for people wanting to use the library space to exhibit their outside things. And we have a material selection policy, but we don't currently have a display policy. So we're referring to a policy we really don't have right now. And that
I think this is one thing. It's just one thing. Material selection policy and display and exhibit policy, that is one policy.
well,
We can just lump it and say material selection and display exhibit policy.
the collection development policy doesn't say anything about displays. It makes no reference to displays. It's talking about the materials in the collection.
No, but it says it has to be viewed in the, if I read this correctly, term library materials as it occurs in this policy has the widest possible meaning. And I think it does discuss somewhere in here that it can include displays.
I was reading it, looking closely for anything referring to displays. I didn't see anything in there. But because and it goes again, the summary here, I wasn't present at the UHLS, training, but, I'm reading the summary and it was in the policy committee's meeting, and all of these, the rationale given, the description of the UHLS's, rationale and thing, this really doesn't apply to displays. This is all things that apply to collections and, what materials are in your collection and how you're going to develop your collection. And that's what this policy is about. And it's really not about displays. And, some of the things we say about the collection, which makes sense to a collection, are just, not, it's disingenuous when it's applied to displays. It's not the case. We say
Example.
the library's acquisition of any item or resource does not constitute endorsement. Displays, certain displays especially indisputably are in some sense an endorsement. They're a recommendation to people. You can't have a display that says staff picks and say that's not an endorsement. Clearly someone's endorsing that and telling people that they're recommending that you use those books. That's different. That's the library, the library or the individual staff members or whoever is given the authority to create these displays is putting out as kind of the library or the staff's speech to the public, here's something we want you to look at.
But I don't think it's based on their personal opinion. It's based on their.
Something called
professional
staff
opinion.
picks is not based on personal
But
opinion.
it's also based on, their job. It's not a personal choice. It's a job for them to do that.
But
So-
it's not governed by the same, so we, again, I don't want to spend forever on this. I think I've tried to.
What criteria would you want to see applied to displays?
I'm not saying we need to. I think it can be left to the discretion of the library staff and administration. I don't think it's something that necessarily has to be, okay.
But that's what we're doing, isn't it?
We're,
I guess simply, Mike, what would you want to
Okay.
see changed
So
to
the-
accommodate?
okay, let me back up a second, right? There are 1,000 different things that a patron could potentially want to complain about what the library is doing. They could want to complain about, language in the newsletter that's sent out or something that's posted on social media.
The
or they could-
decorations. for crying
The
out loud.
decorations, or the bathroom's not clean enough, or some staff member was rude to them, or there isn't enough staffing, or any of 1,000 different things. And they're welcome to make those complaints if they want to make those. They can voice it to somebody in the staff, or they can put a thing in a complaint box or do all those things. And the library can take account of them as they will. Either, oh, this is a legitimate thing, let's try and fix that, or this person's a crank, or this, whatever, or this is just a one-off thing, it's not something worth worrying about, or whatever. And the library can deal with them as they will. What we have here, though, is with the collection, and we're making a situation where certain types of complaints are automatically being elevated, or someone can automatically elevate that to the level of the board, right? And I think these are, the operation of the library and all these millions of decisions that are going to get made are primarily the business of the library staff and not something that rises to the board level. Now, when it comes to the collection and a complaint about some book or something being in the collection, we have a defined policy that says, these are the criteria, this is why or this is how you're supposed to decide whether something's appropriate or whatever. If we have that elevated to the board level, the board can look at that and can say, well, somebody complained about this, but the library has explained how it was selected or why it's part of the collection, and that complies with our policies, and that's fine, and so be it. When it's anything else that's kind of a discretionary thing, the board has no particular guidance. There's no
So you
guidance.
want to see display struck from this?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do, and I've said that,
That's fine.
I don't think displays because we have no policy or criteria that says what's an appropriate display.
Sure, and
And so-
I agree with you. I think it ends up being a slippery slope towards programming decisions, right? So in the same way that a display is sort of developer
Well,
curated by staff.
I agree, and that's why library programs, for the same reason, somebody can always put in a complaint about the program if they want, but
Yeah.
I don't think that, I think everything else on this checkbox, these are like actual parts of the collection. They're items, either physical items or electronic, resources, ebooks and, things like that are part of the collection. And we have a policy about how we develop our collection, what belongs in the collection, but library programs, displays are fundamentally different. And we currently, we don't have a policy that governs, what is an appropriate display. And I don't think it makes sense to automatically have a process to elevate that to the board level in the same way.
So if we took out display exhibit from the first page of this, and then from the second, where it's an option to check mark, you would be okay with the form?
Yeah. And I might also remove library program for the same reasons. You said library. Oh, did you say? So, yeah, you said that. Display exhibit and library program from the checkboxes.
I mean, I would be fine personally with that, because then the policy itself says library materials as it occurs in this policy has the widest possible meaning. So it doesn't mean that someone actually, I mean, it means that someone can challenge that. It's the widest possible
No, I
meaning.
think if taking that off, we're saying we're not open.
Well, I
to challenging.
understand that, but someone might still do it. And
And they
when
can,
doing
there is
it,
a
let's
process.
say-
They make a complaint
this
to a
is
staff
the
member. If they
doesn't
want to
apply.
escalate it to the board, it comes into public comment.
Yeah.
So I mean, there is an established process for making a complaint about anything in the library.
But isn't that technically cutting off more of what the public can or cannot do to challenge our stuff? I mean,
I-
that's just,
Here's the thing.
I think it's just, maybe I'm really tired, but on the one hand, you're saying, you know, it is a arbitrary decision by the staff, so we should have criteria, or we're endorsing certain things and we shouldn't be doing that. And on the other hand, you're saying, no, let's just lump it all together and take it out. So I'm not sure if I'm tired, I'm not understanding, but we're speaking with both sides of our mouths. I don't know.
I'm saying, my position is, I don't think the board should be putting itself into the review process unless there are some, set
Criteria.
criteria and standards that the board is going to use to evaluate that. And if it's something that's being left to the library's discretion, then it's not something the board should be inserting itself into the review process.
All right, so the horse is dead. We talked about this. The board part where we come in is just ensuring the process we set forward, that the committee is being held to. If someone's super not happy with that committee meeting, we do our due diligence to go, yep, they did or did not follow what they should have been doing. And then we're just corroborating it was a correct decision or correcting a decision that was made in error. So I think that's where we fit in. Again, this was best practices from training from many, many organizations that are doing this thing. And it didn't come out of thin air. It came out of a very visceral, real issue. We see like the statistics were staggering. I wish I had them in front of me, but it went from like a couple hundred challenges to like tens of thousands in this specific area of exhibits and displays. So we can cut off our nose to spite our face and say this makes the board happy by removing this one thing. But it just, I don't see what we're accomplishing. I don't see the big deal, honestly, like drilling this to death. I think it's better to cover ourselves as best as possible and just have something in practice that we can reevaluate later if it is or is not working. But I feel like this is like a conversation that's dragged on for hours. And so I'd just like to maybe try to do a vote at this point or see what we can do, because all points have been raised a few times already. So can we like move forward?
I can totally appreciate that others have discussed this more. I wasn't in attendance at the special meeting. I acknowledge that. I guess where I sit though, we have a procedure that references a policy that doesn't exist. So I currently, unless I'm missing it, can we point to a policy, a display policy that has criteria? I guess I don't know what this reconsideration form and group
Wait,
would
so
be protecting.
let me address that. If we
Sure.
are saying, and we can remake the motion, I guess, we could say established a material selection policy, right? And then we can remove display and library programming from the second page. I guess we could take a straw vote to see if it would pass.
Marina, can I
Yeah.
just say something?
I'm sorry,
This whole-
I'm
this whole-
sorry, I just want to finish on the question
Okay.
that I was asking. My only comment there was that I would be in support of this if I understood what the criteria, what the display policy criteria, like what
But there
criteria the
isn't- there
display.
And that's
policy
what Mike's
includes.
getting at, that there is.
There isn't, so that's what I'm saying.
But is there
The
one
process-
coming?
Well, why not? The process involves a person taking this form and saying, I'm not happy that you displayed, I don't know, a book about Barbie, right?
Yeah.
And then Tim takes it to the head of the children's department as well as another person and says, how did you choose to display this book? Why did you do that? And then if they decide, well, it's relevant because of these criteria that are listed in the collection development policy, then they make their decision. And then Tim would write a letter to that person if they decide it's okay. It's based on their professional opinion based on their training, based on the policy.
So just to be clear, I am in support of that.
Yeah.
I just worry if someone made a challenge to the display,
Mhm.
right? To a display, the group got together to review this.
Yeah.
Where is, where do they draw, what policy do they draw support from in regards to evaluating, right? Like this to me is very clear about collection materials, but are we saying that collection includes displays?
Yeah. that's what
Okay,
we-
I
yeah.
think that then we
Yeah,
just
and
have
that's
to
what
make
Mike,
that more
I think
clear.
that's what Mike doesn't like.
That's what started this whole discussion
Yeah.
last month, all right?
Yeah, and so we already had a
Sorry.
special meeting on
I'm
this
sorry,
exact
I'm sorry.
this exact topic. And also we had a policy committee meeting where Ted was present, who, had been at the special meeting, was against it or abstained at the time. But Ted did vote in favor of this after we discussed it at the policy committee meeting and after Nina Lee had gone to the training. So this is not.
Can we just
something
say the Guilderland Public Library acquires and displays materials? I mean, I guess I'm just looking for a way that we point back and say, the group would come back and say, thank you for your feedback. We appreciate your concern about our library's well-being according to our, collection, maybe it isn't collection and development policy or something. These are the criteria and the guidelines that the library uses when they're acquiring materials and when they're displaying them. And because I think without that, I'm still stuck with, what are you pointing to say that you checked on in
And I think we
response?
still will have some holdouts that believe the display and acquisition are two separate issues. I mean, I don't want to speak for anybody, but I think that the minds that are
But
made
then
up
you
in
can
that
say here,
area.
the director has ultimate responsibility for material selection and display. I think there are a few places where we can add display in, where we're at giving the authority to the director, done.
Because that was the whole point. You were going to combine the two and wording it that way, you would include the displays.
So if we add
following those
Guilderland Public
criteria.
Library
I think-
acquires
I think they
and
do,
dis-
they do include the displays. I mean, because
doesn't currently say
that's a big area of challenge. I mean, why not? I mean, I thought the whole
Right,
point
no.
of this was to include displays in the form. So
The
that when
ideological-
people challenge displays, then
Yes, we're
the
just
staff
trying to bridge the
professional
procedure and the
staff
policy.
will
Kathy.
make a determination, and I think honestly, the most challenged display seems to be the Pride Month one. I mean, honestly,
I just
I mean, what
wanna
else are people like
Codify
complaining
that
about?
we're giving that discretion to the library director.
The
Okay,
ideological
you know,
issue is that acquisition and display are two different things.
Let's just
Acquisition
kinda-
says
let's just
this is a
kinda
part
call
of
it
the
what it is,
historical record.
What are
Display is
people
an
most
endorsement.
likely to?
Like that's I think that,
But-
I don't want to summarize too much, but I think that's the one sentence summary of the issue.
So then one can add a section that says displays. Built off of the collection represents the discretion afforded to the library director and staff.
I don't have any issue. I'm going to vote yes on this. So
That need the.
So are
Right,
we
so
voting on
collection
the
development
form?
Policy may be displayed by the director and.
Yeah, I think it's simple
So
to,
then if you have a
it's
complaint about,
incorporated.
the complaint comes down to not how the book is put out, but the fact that the book is
Okay.
in there.
I am there now. I think let's take a straw vote. We can vote
I think
to
we need to take a vote on.
work
we
with
have-
it. It can
have
always be
a-
revised.
We don't have to take a straw vote. We're taking a vote on
Sure.
the first one because we have a motion and a second for the first motion for the form. So I'm just gonna take a vote,
But
are we considering a revision that takes those things out, or are we voting on it as it is?
You have to make an
the
amendment.
form, we're voting on the form as it is,
Okay.
okay?
Amendments.
We're not
We're not
making a whole bunch of changes on the form, okay? So I'll just do it. Corey,
Yes. Aye.
Barbara,
No,
Mike,
No.
Bill,
Yes.
Vanessa,
Marina, yes.
Oh.
Sorry.
I
Vanessa?
have a question because you made a statement right before this vote that impacts my vote. In the past, when we've done this, if it doesn't pass, there's the ability to make a suggestion for a revision to be considered. Are you saying that you're not going to allow that?
I didn't say anything about allowing anything. It's just that we're voting on the form as it is. I mean, it's just too confusing. I mean, people say all kinds of different things about this,
Okay.
wanting this and wanting that, and
I
it's
am a
just-
no on it
too
as is,
confusing.
but I would like us to, in rapid succession, propose some minor revisions that I can vote yes on.
We're
and then-
taking a vote. So is
said-
your vote no?
Yes, and I'm allowed to say a statement about that, which I just did.
And then it's Alicia.
Alicia?
Yes.
And I'm yes. So, 5. So it doesn't pass. If Vanessa, are you abstaining, Vanessa?
No, I literally said I voted no, but I would like to see us have the opportunity to reconsider it with some minor changes.
Is that removing display and library program?
No, it actually has to do with a revision to the collection policy, adding in.
Oh, we're only voting on this form.
Right, I know, but that's what I'm saying.
So should we bother to vote on the
So that you
collection
work
policy,
together.
or
Right
is
now, they
it
don't
just gonna
work
be the
together, in
same
my
vote?
No, I think we should do the second vote because Vanessa might propose a third motion after we do the vote on the procedure itself, on the policy itself. So if someone wants to make the motion to approve the collection development policy as recommended by the policy committee. I don't know if I can make that motion. I can't, if I can,
Marina? And who, second?
I'll second it.
Is it Alicia?
Sorry.
Okay, all right, so this is the collection development policy as written. So, Corey,
Yes.
Barbara,
No.
Mike,
Yes.
Bill,
Yeah.
Vanessa,
Had your discussion with this one, or we considered it already had?
we're doing the collection development policy.
Right, but usually you move in second and then ask for discussion. So I'm asking if we are incorporating the prior discussion as that discussion. Was
Okay,
discussion eliminated?
sorry, I forgot to ask for
Um,
more discussion because I feel like the collection development policy has been part of the prior discussion.
so,
But if
but
you want to talk about it again, fine.
So all I want to say is that I think there's an opportunity for some minor changes here that if passed, could allow us to reconsider or revote on or propose, make a new motion on the procedure, the reconsideration procedure. Either adding in the word displays or adding, I'm not sure if it would be.
I think
Item
this
6.
is gonna pass though, honestly.
But I think she's
Let me
suggesting
just keep,
something that would
keep
make us
doing the vote, okay? You can be no. Norina,
Yes.
Elish,
Yes.
What is happening?
and I'm yes.
Why did you cut off
pushing
my
us through. She's
discussion?
pushing us through is what she's doing.
No, Kathy, please don't push my discussion off the table. Because
just-
what I would like to propose is that we not pass it as is and vote on a minor revision that could allow us to reconsider the previously failed motion. I think that's really important. We could potentially make progress and put this to bed. So to just push on through and say we're going to continue with a vote is, to me, not acceptable leadership.
All right, well, but the vote passed.
Done.
It didn't, we didn't
Policy
complete the
passed.
vote.
She
What?
did, she got 6 votes.
It passed.
Crazy.
I mean, the form didn't pass, so, I mean, we can make some revisions to the form. 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so it failed. I would like to make a motion that we reconsider the collection policy with the following revisions. Add
Yeah,
section 6 to describe displays. Giving discretion to the library director and staff to, I don't know, develop displays based on the collection we have. Or insert display, the word displays in a couple of key places. I think that this is, I would appreciate some help from my colleagues. I think that this is salvageable and
Yeah, I
could
think
allow
that's
the incorporate.
Let's say.
Already the way it is.
but the
It did
collection,
not pass.
With
It
1,
did.
2, 3,
It
4,
didn't
5.
pass. You skipped discussion. How is that a valid vote?
I don't think we skipped discussion. I think we had an extensive discussion on both things.
Kathy, respectfully, after you move to, make a motion and second it, it is appropriate to allow discussion before the vote, of which you skipped, of which I raised concern about, and then you proceeded to ignore. So from my perspective,
And when the motion was made for the form, for the first one, the statement was made, I don't remember who said it, that said, we're only discussing the form now, we're not discussing the
Right.
collection. I noted that when I started my talk, I said, I have no problem with the collection, I'm only addressing the form because that comment had been made. So if the statement is made that we're only discussing the form, not the collection, and then we go on to the vote for the collection and say no more discussion because it's already been covered, that doesn't.
I would like to revise my vote to abstain so that we can return to the motion to discuss.
Fine, okay, so discussion about the collection policy.
I think what you were saying
Yes, go
is
ahead.
to
Yes.
say the Guilderland Public Library acquires and displays materials that will fulfill current educational, informational, et cetera, et cetera. So the same, everything stays the same except we're adding the words and displays right after acquires.
Yep.
Any other place that you wanted
Yes.
to add something?
Under, I think we can add a C under responsibility, to include, just either add in displays appear or make displays separate if that is the,
The director's ultimate responsibility for material selection and display.
Yep. Criteria can be for the acquisition of the books that can stay separate, right? And we could add a section after enhancing the collection, right? We could add a new number 5 that could be displays and
Where are
maintaining,
you?
sorry, just after here, because we have enhancing the collection, right? Again, that's
Yeah.
about acquisition. And I was just suggesting following that, add a new section that reference displays.
What would it say?
And I will appreciate some support here, but something about the library director and staff or team or whatever have the discretion to develop displays, either leveraging or using the collection. It probably needs another sentence so that it's a little
Using
bit,
the criteria
yeah.
Hey Kathy,
fit in the
Yeah.
collection.
could I just have a point of order here? Most responsible boards saying that there is such confusion would,
Can she
Can I
just
just
say this?
finish? Right, like, can we just
we're on
finish
the right
this?
track.
and another policy.
Can I just finish,
I'm
please?
making another motion after this, so I
Which
want
I'm
to
allowed
have
to
this
do.
motion.
If you don't want to vote for it, you don't have to. And then I would just say,
On the fly.
I think
yeah,
it would address it.
maintaining, yeah, and then I
Okay,
think it would
so-
be okay with that.
The changes that we're making to the collection development policy are as follows. The Guilderland Public Library acquires, and then we're inserting the words and displays. And then the rest follows, materials, blah, blah, blah. In section number 2, the director has ultimate responsibility for material selection and displays, period. The rest stays the same. There is a new number 5 right after enhancing the collection Number 5 would be director and staff have the discretion to develop displays using the criteria reflected in the collection development policy.
I'm sorry, I'm just clear, 5C, is that what we're talking about?
No, just.
No, it'd be the new 5 and then 5 would become 6.
The, like, yeah, Roman numeral 5, and then maintaining the collection becomes Roman numeral number 6.
That does it.
And I think that's it. So Vanessa, do you want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the collection development policy as amended.
I will second Corey.
Okay. Is there any more discussion?
Yeah, brief comment. So I don't in principle have a problem with adding something about displays into this, but my primary thing is I reject the idea that displays are governed by the same criteria that govern the development of a collection.
Okay,
in the
can you
first place.
suggest a rewording?
I would prefer to leave it something as the development of displays will be left to the discretion of the library staff or the director or some such thing or whatever, as informed by their professional experience.
Great. Where do we say that?
That would, adding that instead of what we
But-
said about the collection part under displays. Am I understanding that correctly?
I'm sorry, so where'd you say?
Under number 5.
Yes.
right
Yeah,
below
if
that.
it could either be a new number 5, or we could make it a B under criteria. 3A
I
is
just-
criteria for the developing the collection, and 3B is, displays. The development of displays shall be, left to the discretion of the staff, or I don't know what we say, the staff or the
accept that.
director.
Suggestion, we can strike and not change section 5.
And so
But
we
I
strike
should point out that the form, which had the displays in it, that seemed to be such a concern because there wasn't a display thing in the policy, the form didn't
Right.
pass. So the
Correct.
Yeah, so we're
form-
going back
the
to it.
form is not,
Yeah,
it hasn't passed.
Right, correct, but I think that I would entertain a motion to revisit that or open that vote based on the revisions to the policy. So let's finish out these revised policies. Can you just read through the suggested changes so I can make
Yeah,
the motion again?
So the Guilderland Public Library acquires and displays, that's added, the language in there. Under number 2, the director has ultimate responsibility for material selection and displays, period. Under number 3, we're adding a B. I can't understand my own writing. The development of displays shall be left to the discretion of the director and library staff according to their, what did you?
Professional,
Yeah, I don't know exactly what it's something like, using their
Professional discretion.
judgment and expertise or something.
Yeah, judgment and expertise.
perfect,
And that's it. Those are all the changes.
correct.
So then
So,
Having
you want me to make the
done
motion?
that, yeah, I think you have to make it
Okay,
again.
so I move to approve the collection development policy as amended.
And I will second Corey.
Okay, are you guys ready to take another vote?
I have no further discussion.
Yeah, I think so.
Corey,
Yes.
Barbara,
No,
Mike,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Vanessa,
Yes,
Norina,
Yes.
Alish,
Yes.
and I am a yes. Okay, so it passes. All right. So someone wanted to revisit the form in light of
I
this
will move that
policy?
we revisit the form in light of the changes to the policy.
All right. Is there a motion and a second to revisit the form?
I will also move that we approve the form in light of the changes to the policy.
Okay, Corey, and is there a second?
Norina?
Okay. Is there further discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
You wanna go?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so, I don't want to belabor this or anything. I still think it's really, it's unnecessary to include the displays in this. And the reason I say that is, again, including something in here is giving someone an automatic right to elevate this to the board level. And I think we're unnecessarily giving this more prominence and importance than it needs to have. We've had a tiny number of complaints about displays. I know this has been a big issue and people have said, oh, this is a big concern. There's challenges everywhere, but the challenges have not been successful and there's been no legal basis for someone to challenge displays. And we're kind of making a mountain out of a molehill, and we're giving people the ability to automatically bring something to the board level when, I think it should be treated as any other complaint about any other aspect of the library that somebody doesn't like. They can make that complaint and the library can do with it what it's will. If they think it's legitimate, they can address it. If they don't, they can ignore it. And if it becomes such a big issue that we're getting so many complaints, then it will have to be brought to our attention. That's all, but. I'll
So
leave it
I
there.
just wanted to comment that I disagree that including it on the form gives people a direct line to us. The process actually requires this committee to review it, and it would require the complainant to then subsequently appeal in order for it to come to us. So I would just like to say I'm okay with including displays on here to be consistent with the policy. I would actually like to see library programs removed. I feel like the place for feedback on library programs is public comment. There's no policy as I know it that outlines criteria for programming. So to me, it's sort of an element that's sort of dangling without a corresponding policy. So my request would be to remove library programs and encourage those who have feedback on that to use existing avenues.
So my brief follow-up on this is I agree with Mike that there is a distinct line between what the board and the staff is responsible for, and displays should not be escalated to a board level. I agree with that 100% in principle. However, the staff is actually the one that brought this up and brought this to us for something that should be a part of the challenge process, and that's where it came from. And so in the fact that the staff is suggesting this, that it's coming from the library folks internally saying there should be a part of the process that looks at displays because we are concerned that that will be challenged. I want to respect that and say that if they want that it should be something that's escalated to a board level. And so I do agree with keeping displays on the form just because of that instance. I do support removing library programs because there's not a corresponding policy.
Arena, totally unrelated to this. On the last page, we have, we encourage you also to make an appointment to speak with the library director at reconsideration, et cetera. But on the front page, the end of the second paragraph, it says make an appointment to speak with the library director by contacting them at, can't we just eliminate it and mimic what we have on the back page? Speak with the library director at reconsideration requests.
What you mean, remove a sentence or what?
No, just keep it. Make an appointment to speak with the library director at reconsideration requests as we have on the last page there, library director at reconsideration requests.
Isn't
That says.
that the same thing? I don't know what's the difference.
Well, because they've added by contacting.
Yeah, but
them.
that's here too.
Yeah, but not on the back. On the back.
So
So you want us to take out
Yeah,
by
just-
contacting them, those words?
Make an
Yeah.
appointment to speak with the library director at, and then there's that email. address.
Right, but here they've added extra words that they don't need. Library director by contacting them at. Eliminate. And then you have,
So you just want to eliminate the words by
By
contact.
contacting them, so that it's consistent with the back.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
I just didn't understand what
yeah, that's fine.
So what was you wanted to take programs out of this, this form?
I think we'd have to vote on it.
Well,
Or
I mean, you can
make a
amend your
motion.
motion. It's your motion. Are you saying that you want to amend it to exclude library programming? And also, I do want to say that the second paragraph had said the trustee of Guilderland Public Library have established material selection, I think we're going to say material selection and display policy.
Great. I mean, I think that that's for discussion, should programs be in there or not? What are people in support of? That's again, and also a staff concern, and I'm sure that the Upper Hudson Library staff, the staff here have probably brought
And
that
I
up
do want to
because
say
programs
that
have been
with
challenged.
regards to programming, one that's been very contentious has been drag story time or something. And Bethlehem Library has had actual meetings with the public, with public meetings to discuss this with them because it's been a big concern.
Yeah.
And so we may want to include that, but I do.
But they did that
understand-
as an extension of their public input session. So they had a full meeting that was public input, so it still wouldn't go through this process. It would just be that there was so much public input that they had that separate board meeting solely for public input the night before Drag Queen Story Hour.
Yeah, I mean,
So I
you
mean,
have more experience in the library field than I do, so if you feel like library programming is okay to be removed from the form, I will go with that decision.
I don't actually feel passionate. If one of the staff members that's in this room, like, feels like that they want to advocate for it, I want to hear that. But I'm okay with it either way.
I'm not opposed to reconsidering it in the future. I think that right now,
Because
we
we don't
don't
have
have
a
a policy.
Okay.
So I'm reluctant to have it right now.
So if you want to amend your motion to, just for those corrections that I made in the second paragraph and to remove library programming, I guess we can.
I would ask for any staff that are in the room if they want to speak to it really quickly, briefly, before I decide if I want to amend my motion. Natalie, Tim, Sarah, anybody?
I think what I want to say is that my feeling about everything that's going on here, and it's not just in this room, it's also in the industry, is that the industry is rather hastily suggesting that since they typically don't have policies on the display of books or on programming, you just throw them into the request for reconsideration process as a way of preserving the right to access any kind of information within public library. I am honestly not sure where I stand on that, but I think that's what's happening, in my opinion. And I respectfully think that that's really, you know, I don't know what I think about that, but at any rate, I think that's what is happening.
I think what I'm gonna say is we can remove programming right now obviously the policy committee still exists. So if we want to do a policy with regards to programming, we can have that discussion and then we can amend the policy form afterwards. That's all I wanted to say.
Would people rather see it stay in? If you're going to vote yes, would you rather see programming stay in, be removed?
I would rather see it be removed if I'm gonna vote yes.
Okay,
I don't know enough about programming and what that discussion involves to make a decision one way or another on
Right.
that.
I'd rather see it stay in because I believe that librarians have joined a profession where they are given discretion to conduct programming. And it, you know, should only be questioned in extreme circumstances. I mean, most of our programs are about, you know, a certain book, a Medicare policy, a craft activity. Like, why do people want to challenge that at all? Just
and you think it should be escalated up to the board rather than going through public
I'm
comment section?
confused. From my perspective, removing it protects that discretion. And I am okay for including an extreme escalation process once there's clearer criteria in place in a policy. So from my perspective, just to be clear, taking it out for right now, retains the pathway to voice your displeasure with the program through the current mechanism of public comment, comment card, reaching out to you. And in my perspective, that protects the discretion that the library team has. My fear, again, I'll just say it's on here. Someone is pissed about the trunk or treat because they think that we're celebrating Wiccans or, you know, they're against witchcraft. And they put this out and then you have to convene a team
Mhm.
to respond to this and review it. And we don't have any policy for you to point to protect that. I would like to follow up with a policy that codifies and protects the library's discretion to develop profession.
So my only response to that is you should have it in there to have some degree of protection until you develop the policy. Because it's a complete wasteland, no man's land. There is no policy on programming. So anything goes, both in terms of protesting it or in terms of presenting it. But if you throw the word programming in there and the word display, you're temporarily covered. I would agree that both subjects need more.
But we added discretion in the policy
Okay.
around displays. I guess what I'm saying to you is if you got a challenge,
Mhm.
how would you respond right now? Because there's no policy to point to. How would you make a clear determination
Mhm.
that the challenge was valid or not?
In the way you suggested, that we'd go through the public comment period and, the board would presumably.
So I'm sorry, just to be clear, the public comment is not a part of this process. So
Right,
I'm saying
right.
right now, if we approve a form that has library program on there, someone checks the box,
Mhm.
you have to convene a team.
Mhm.
How are you gonna respond to that right now?
I
My
would-
fear is you don't have a way to respond.
I would treat it just like a complaint about possessing a book. I would say we have a
Right,
policy.
but
for
this,
that.
but we don't have a policy for programs is my point.
To me, we would if we put the word programs in there.
What is the policy? Tim?
The policy is you have a problem with a program, you fill out
Right,
this
but this
form.
policy says that this team would, let's see, hold on.
That whole process is to protect. your
Yes, but
freedom. So-
this here describes a process for that team. I'm missing it right now. Hold on, let me just find it.
I
Convening
think,
committee.
and I don't know if, I think what Vanessa's getting at is the distinction between the process and what's the substantive standard that's being used. And with the collection, we have a substantive standard. We say, this is what we're aiming for in a collection, and these are the things we're going to consider in developing a collection. And then we got the process to appeal it, and you can, when somebody challenges a book that's in the collection, you can say, well, did we comply with our policy in developing, does this fit within our criteria of how we develop a collection? Does it make sense to do that? And we have that. If we have a thing here to check the library program where somebody can complain about the library program, then we would have the process, but there's no substantive standard. So it comes to you and you have to convene the, group to consider this. And it's, well, how do we evaluate whether this is a legitimate complaint or not? It's just, it's just, there's nothing there, So I mean, effectively, it's.
I'm
It's
fine.
It's fine.
Can we, go ahead, Barbara.
I totally object to this way of doing things because usually it would go back to the committee. But if we're going to continue, if you say Guilderland Public Library acquires and displays materials and presents programs that will fill current educational, informational, and recreational needs and interests of our community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you'd have it in there.
I'm fine with that. I would
That's
just
kind of
ask
what I
that the
meant.
policy committee consider in the future developing a program policy
Where are you, Barbara? I'm not sure. Where are you reading?
that gives the discretion of the library.
Talking about the collection.
The first, yes, you'd have to change that title to begin with.
No,
The Guilderland Public Library acquires and displays
I'm
materials
fine with it. We can leave program in.
and presents programs that will fill education, current educational, informational, et cetera, needs.
So I'm going to keep the motion as it stands, and continue to move that we pass this form as is, and then,
Is there a change in
ask the
content?
policy committee kindly to consider whether or not something in the future should come towards us.
But you're changing those words right here in the second
Yes, you
paragraph.
still
right?
have to,
With that, yes,
so just that change.
yes, just that change.
So are we ready for a vote?
No.
Are we ready for a vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Corey,
Yes.
Barbara,
No,
Mike,
Yes.
Bill.
Yeah.
Vanessa.
Yes, I'd like to just say that I would wholly welcome the policy committee taking a look at if there are other supportive policies that could be developed that protect the discretion of the library staff
For programming or just in general?
for programming.
Okay, noted.
Norina,
Yes.
Elise,
Yes.
and I'm yes. Okay, so both the, like, I have so many votes here. Both the policy and the form have now passed. So,
Amended policy and
Yeah.
amended form.
correct. All right. So,
Thank you, policy committee.
Thank you, board, for working with us on this. You know, I think it's more effective because then we would have gone back and forth. So I appreciate the support.
I want to say thank you too. It's a hard issue and you guys did hard work. We're going to be in good shape.
okay, are we ready to go on to old business, reducing board members?
I think we had a couple more committees.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
do we
Okay. So
have
still
committee?
me.
I'm sorry.
I'm not on the points
I
yet.
thought we're still on policy.
I don't have much to say. Foundation did not meet last month because of quorum issues. I hope they're looking meeting next week, Thursday.
I just want to say on the foundation that the golf tournament raised $7,300, $1,800 more than the previous year. So
Yay.
thank you to all who helped.
Did your game improve, Tim?
No, it got worse.
There's always next year.
There you go. I saw your sister post about playing, so she's playing next year.
Yeah,
so-
I'll get her. I'll get her
Okay.
next game.
Okay, personnel, Mike.
Yes, the Personnel Committee met on September 7th, and there were two items of discussion. One was some proposals from the management confidential employees for the next round of their contract negotiations, some suggested revisions, and the committee requested some more information about the financial impacts and things that we're going to so we're waiting on that to consider that further. And then the second topic was some more discussion of a proposed or a potential retirement incentive that would be connected with the library's reorganizational efforts. And we just earlier this week got some more information both on financial impact and also from Chris about just legal aspects of it. But the committee is going to need to meet again to discuss that further. So I'm going to hopefully do a poll soon and we'll get the committee back together.
You have to say doodle.
Is that what we're doing?
Just kidding.
So, yeah, that's it for personnel, and the labor management committee did not meet.
All right, anything from board development, Barbara?
No, we have not met.
Okay, so back to old business, reducing board members. And I assume that means reducing to 9 members from 11. Is that what I recall that the discussion was?
Yes.
So, I think with the 3-year term, like with the school board has 9 members, 3 people run every year, but it's going to take some time, I think, to reduce that board if the vote is to do it. And it also takes some time to come to the 3-year term because everybody with a 5-year term keeps serving their 5-year term. So,
There are at least 3 board members that's term expires this coming election cycle. So the board size could reduce this coming year.
yeah, except I think there's 3 people up. So I don't think you can just like say this year is the year where you only have 1 person elected because if you keep doing that, you're just gonna like keep reducing the board, right? So, I don't think you can just do that. I don't think you can just say, well, the people that work, that run in 2024, they can't run.
They
You
can
know?
run, there's just only one position that would be available.
Well, I don't think that's true. I mean, I don't think you can reduce the board just like that. I don't think you can say,
So you actually have to reduce board just like that, because it's within the confines of what the state requires. So if we pass this, the board reduction goes into effect as of July 1st.
is that what the bylaws say?
That's what the state says.
It doesn't,
But
because I thought that,
This is
that
our
was related to
bylaw.
the term length.
This,
but I
the
think it's
term
up to us
limit
how we
is the
enact.
state. The
Oh, okay.
reduction is our bylaws. Like we can reduce the board based upon our bylaws.
So I guess Kathy, I don't understand what the problem would be by reducing the board in that manner. I mean, there are years when there are different numbers of positions that are open for election than others.
Well, I think, normally, every person whose term is expiring, there is a seat that's going to be open. So in theory, every person whose term is up would be able to, if they get elected again, depending on how many challenges or whatever, there's at least an opening for them to do that. But this year, there'd be 3 board members whose terms would end, only 1 new one starting. So necessarily, we'd be kicking 2 of the current members off the board, through this next election if everybody wanted to come back. I mean, that's probably, there's not too much way around it unless we're going to somehow try and craft it so it would only happen by attrition when people didn't want to run again. But that's, or we could phase it in, drop from 11 to 10, 1 year, and then 10 to 9 the next year. So it wouldn't have such an impact on everybody all at once, and drop from 3 people to 1 in 1 single year. Is it worth doing that? I don't know, but.
We don't, I mean, ideally, you don't want an even number of board members. I would happily reduce my term by 1 year to get us into a cycle if it goes automatically down to 9 this year. I am in the last 2 of us elected for a 5-year term. If my term converts to 4 years, which I will do, I can resign at the end of 4 years, then it will get us on a cycle where after this year, there are the same number of people, 3 elected for 3-year terms every year.
We would have to amend the bylaws for that too, because normally if you resign early, the person that gets elected only serves the remainder of that term.
Yeah,
So normally, so if you were to resign a year early, the person coming on will only get like.
I will resign perfectly in time so that it, I mean.
No, I mean.
I understand what
So
you mean.
it doesn't change the cycle of that term.
Well, but I think if we are redefining the terms, then it could. I mean, you're gonna do it one way or another, like whether or not we have to define it by saying we go from
Yeah.
11 to 10 to 9, or you allow me to resign at a time that makes it convenient for the cycle.
Yeah, we can figure out, I guess, the logistics of it. Just coming back to just the bigger picture, the basic idea of reducing the board, I'm not sold on it being necessarily, that being beneficial. I'm not completely opposed to it, but I'm not sold on it. I'm not sure I understand the problems it's going to solve, or that it would necessarily be effective in solving whatever problems we've seen. To the extent that I've seen over the time I've been on this board, where there's been a lot of problems coming to decisions and things, I think it's been driven by one of 2 things, and one is either just there are just general or genuine disagreements between different members of the board that just hashing out just substantive disagreements about what the board ought to be doing. And I think to the extent that reducing the numbers reduces that amount of substantive disagreement, it's only because it's allowing less reflection of the broad range of opinion in the town by having fewer people represented on the board. And then the other has just been difficulties that we've had sometimes with certain committees, and certain times in finding times when people are available to meet and times when committees can meet. So there's committees that have gone long periods of time without being able to meet and be able to do their business just because of people's schedules. And I don't see that reducing the number down, which would make every remaining board member have to do more committee service, serve on more more different things. I don't see that that's going to solve that problem. So I'm just not sold on, the reduction necessarily being, solving any problems. But I'm open to be convinced.
From my perspective, I think when we reduce the term length, there are a number of steps that we can take to make service on this board more efficient and perhaps attract more interest. Two things. One, if we reduce the number of board members, I would expect that we would revise our committee structure, and actually having less people makes it easier to schedule as opposed to having more people. And then I would also add that some of the length, not to dilute the number of the difference in perspective, but just by sheer number, when you have more people and everyone talks, it takes longer. So, balancing that with fewer members and making space for everyone's voice to be heard, there to me would be still a benefit in time reduction. Lastly, we do sometimes struggle with, attendance or participation, but I actually think sometimes having more people allows people to feel like they have less, like it's less critical for them to be present and can contribute to increased absences and other things that I'm involved in when there are less people. And I know that there's a small group of people counting on me to do the business, you kind of dial in a different way. I would also argue that, there are other boards, not to put us down, that engage or are responsible for, broader and bigger things than what we're responsible for, and they accomplish that duty effectively with less board members. That's just my perspective.
I'm just gonna echo what you said. I couldn't have said it any better than that. So I'm with you.
I'll also just add that I think we have some time if we determine that, what kind of support we have for the reduction of board members to figure out the mechanism by which we get there. I wouldn't want to see us sort of, I think there's a pathway to it, and I'd rather vote on if we're reducing it, and then if we have support for that, explore our options for doing that. Because there's no elections happening in November or December, so we're safe for a little while.
And just because this is a bylaws change, we are going to need it in writing presented one meeting before the meeting we eventually vote on it. So it needs to be presented in writing before the next meeting that we vote on it. So we do need to, figure out the exact language that we're going to use for this, to the extent we're changing more than just the raw number, but we're going to shift around terms in some way or things like that.
I would just add to the scheduling issue that I would prefer to see, if it happens, to see it happen before December in terms of being considered by the policy committee and then brought back to the full board. Because I think if you do it anytime close to, let's say, March, when you're doing budget development, it may appear that you have some ulterior motive other than just operating better as a board with an election coming up in May.
We typically don't have a meeting in December due to the holidays, right? So this would have to be presented October and approved November in order to hit that December. Correct?
Yeah,
usually
we have a scheduled December meeting. I think we said, if it's not needed, maybe we would cancel it, but we do have it on the calendar. And in
Okay.
past years, we have had that meeting.
Or we've had a special meeting in place of the not regular meeting.
Yeah.
So typically we've met in December, whether
Yeah.
planned or special. So.
It's always special.
Sorry.
Couldn't help myself.
Okay, so does the board want the policy committee to create, what's it called? Resolution to be presented at the next meeting?
For bylaw amendment.
That would be, yeah.
It's actually an amended bylaw, right?
Yeah.
So. And then the resolution would be to change the bylaws as amended or suggested, I would think. So the board is asking for that to be drawn up or no?
I think I would probably not, I would probably abstain from all that just because, it sounds like you want to do it all, from everyone who runs in 2024. So since I'm in that category, I'm not really sure if I should, really, you know.
We can't get around it. I
I
mean,
feel like, you know, I'm the reduction, so, you know?
but we can't eliminate those. You
Yeah,
can't recuse yours. I mean,
if-
it's a
if there's-
bylaw.
Well, it's just if
I
there's
can
three,
so.
there's three people that are up in, this year, and if all three of those people recuse because they're directly affected by this,
There's
then,
no pathway to a
Well,
bylaw amendment.
well, then we would need a unanimous vote
Unanimous
by
out of
everybody
everybody.
else.
I mean, I guess what I'm,
Which would make it very challenging.
not a fair amendment. Like, I guess what I'm saying is there's a,
They're not
I mean,
proposing
it
anything right now
it
in the
doesn't seem
past.
correct to just like, just reduce because you want to do it, you know, on July 1. And you,
So, right,
and
but
you
don't
need to
you
have,
think that
have
the
like,
guys
you know,
no, instead
like
of recusal?
you have to have all your incumbents compete against each other. I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't seem correct to me to rush it like that.
Mike, with an 11-person board, if 3 recuse, can't you still win this 6-2?
No,
No,
it's
it's
gotta
a
be.
bylaw.
It's a three-quarters vote.
No, two-thirds
Two-thirds,
on a
okay.
bylaws amendment, so we need
Okay,
8
yep, yep, okay.
8.
for a bylaw amendment.
So board governance, it's bad practice to have an even number of members. So in order to drop by 2, this is going to happen in a year. Like there's no way to do it without it not happening at once. So it's either delay it until next year. But I mean, I don't think we want to have 10 members. That's bad board practice, especially for a board that votes so heavily. I don't think that's the issue that we're discussing now. We're just discussing like whether or not it should go onto policies to
Do we
propose
do
a
we have to
bylaws amendment.
vote, or we just?
No, I think we
casually
just say,
Yeah.
Marina, it would be.
I would
lovely
appreciate
to-
that.
But if I don't have to meet and discuss this and present it and then have, we're not actually voting on it, I would, like to save my time because honestly, it is a lot to meet with everyone's
That's fair.
schedule. And I understand that everyone is just as.
Do bylaws amendments have to come out of the policy committee?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I
if
don't
they
think
have
so.
to.
I think
Like
any
to-
committee can bring forward a bylaws amendment, any individual on the board.
I'd like to say one thing, and I may not be making friends with Kathy, Barbara, or Mike, but it seems to me that voting on the structure and thus the operation of the library board ought to be done objectively without consideration for your own involvement. It's an accident of timing that you 3 are involved, but next year it'll be an accident of timing for somebody else.
Well, but I also think it's a fallacy that those are the only ones who are impacted, right? So those of us who are sitting on what was a 5-year term aren't unimpacted.
Right.
They're actually impacted in the opposite way. So by Kathy's logic, we'd all have to recuse ourselves because it implies how long we continue to serve on the board or not.
Well, but
I mean, I
everyone
guess
with
so, like, if I
everyone's
vote-
5-year term still serves a 5-year term. It's not like created into a 3-year term just because,
Right, I'm not
we're
saying that. I
doing,
guess-
I mean, if you have a 5-year term, you're serving a 5-year term.
Right, but you could make the argument that it's easier for me to vote to eliminate because it doesn't impact me. That's my only point. Everybody here, there's an impact to their term in this vote. Like you can't separate it. We all have terms. So, is it easier for me to vote to eliminate it? It won't immediately impact me. So you could say, yes, that is within itself the impact. That's my only point. It's like
Well,
not.
I just don't understand why it's all in 2024. I mean, it
Because
just
the
doesn't seem correct. But
But Kathy, what would be the alternative? Because if you phased it in, we end up having a year with an even number. How do we conduct business with an even number of board members?
And I would
okay,
just
all right,
Point out that
fine.
I just searched my email and I proposed this in November of 2021. So it's an accident that it's coming up now, or it's coming up now because we didn't bring it up earlier.
Well, and we passed to the other piece of
Right.
this last meeting, which I think is why it's coming up now.
So, I mean, I can appreciate the burden on the policy committee. I would be willing to participate in an ad hoc committee to develop the language for the proposed bylaw changes, if there are other people
I will
willing to work on
participate in
it.
an ad hoc bylaws committee.
I don't know if we, how the process for developing an ad hoc committee, but I can appreciate that the policy committee has been doing a lot of work. I think we just need to bring this to a vote, and our only pathway to a vote is to age an amendment recommendation. So Kathy, what's the process to an ad hoc committee? Do you have to create that?
I think we could also just
We
appoint
can, the
this.
board can create one. I mean,
Okay, I'd like to create an ad hoc committee. Who wants to play?
Don't you have
Okay.
to make it as a motion?
I'm sorry,
So,
I
who
move to
wants
create
to
an
be
ad
on
hoc
the committee?
I will happily serve with
Taking
Vanessa.
nominations.
So
We should probably
Vanessa,
have a third person.
and I'm sorry, who wanted to be
So
Cory?
it's very straightforward, I think.
Cory
I
and,
will participate.
and who else? Who else is on the committee?
No other takers, huh?
So it was Vanessa and Cory.
We can put an email out to the members who aren't present and allow them to express interest and volunteer, so.
All right, did you want to create this ad hoc committee? And,
I just made the motion. Do we have a second?
so are you chairing it, Vanessa?
Sure.
Okay. All right,
Put me down on that committee too.
so
Thank
You
There-
couldn't resist. It's looking like so much fun, I can tell.
is there a motion to create this ad hoc committee to revise the bylaws?
Yes, I move.
Okay, Vanessa, and who's
I'll
second?
second is Cory.
Okay. Is there a discussion? All right, all in
Just
favor?
said that we will also still offer it up for participation to the board members who aren't present.
Correct,
You're welcome.
okay. So all in favor of creating this ad hoc committee, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, anyone opposed? Okay, we have created the committee, and we have 2 members so far. We need another one, but,
We have three.
oh,
Bill Cooney,
who's the third one?
Bill.
Go put his name in.
Bill? Okay,
I'm
great.
regretting it.
why don't you guys meet immediately after?
Only if it involves a gallon of wine.
Oh,
All right. Good. So,
taking it
new
all.
business, Pledge of Allegiance.
I guess that's my can of worms. So this was something that was brought to my attention. So it's by no means like the hill I'm dying on, but I thought it warranted a discussion because it had been brought to my attention. We're one of 2 libraries in the entire system that does still do the Pledge of Allegiance, and due to various differences in, stances on it and et cetera, it was worth bringing up as a discussion point to see if there was interest in removing that from the beginning of the meetings. And I know people have voiced some of their opinions via email, so they might want to express that here publicly and open to hearing it. But just some background onto where that came from. It was something that was brought to my attention. It seemed like it was worth bringing up at the board level to see if there was interest in changing how we do things, leaving it the same, and then throwing it out there in that way. I know a couple people had mentioned to me on the side that they weren't super interested in continuing with the pledge, so I felt it was worth bringing up in a meeting.
Okay. I know that we had a member a while ago who didn't agree with the pledge, but she just didn't say it. So, so I don't know, I could go either way. I mean, I know that the pledge is typically said at the beginning of meetings of elected officials. So I think that's why we do it, because we're all elected officials,
Mhm.
elected trustees. So, but I'll open it to discussion. I mean, if there's a consensus that we shouldn't say it, then that's fine, but I just didn't know how people felt about it. I can't tell who's raising their hand, but
And
Yeah.
first, yeah.
So, just in the interest of time, I'm not gonna, I'm happy to explain at length if people want it, but I support, if there's a motion to eliminate it from the meetings, I would support that.
And I just want to say that for my whole 10 years, whoever has been the board president has expected me to do it. And I work for all of you, so I can't really say no. But for various reasons, I don't like the idea that I'm asked to lead it. So if the board is going to continue to lead it, I would ask that the board leads it as opposed to the director. And I can explain why if you're interested, but it's not so much.
It's actually a practice that's widely been abandoned, just to clarify. Kathy's correct. Previously, elected entities did start meetings that way, but it is not, it's been widely abandoned. I currently don't participate in the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance and would welcome its removal from our agenda.
anyone else?
Barbara, and then I'll go.
I guess it's no surprise that having many people in my family serve in the military, some died for the country, and all the people who still strive to come to this country for the ideals that are in the pledge. I would be adamantly opposed to, not honoring our nation. Did it have its flaws over history? Has every nation? Yes. But we have always striven to correct those flaws. Sometimes it's taken longer than we'd like. But to deny the sacrifices, going back to the revolutionary days and how our country was formed and all the men and women who have served over the years to protect our rights, protect what that flag stands for. I just do not understand why we would eliminate a practice that has been common now. Vanessa says that many public bodies are not doing it anymore. As far as I know, the town board, the Congress, the school board, most of the public boards in this area, other than the library boards that you mentioned, certainly say the pledge. And everyone is free, if they choose not to say the pledge for whatever reason, not to participate, but to deny those of us who still respect the flag and all the citizens in this community that still love their country, see the Pledge of Allegiance as something very special and dear. I certainly would not support that kind of a motion.
So just, oh, go ahead.
I respect Barbara's opinion. I think that the pledge has a place in elected bodies. I don't think the library is the place for it. I'm the one that did the research into determining how many libraries in Upper Hudson library system say it. And it was confirmed that we are one of only two, us and Castleton, that say it. And I do support us removing the pledge because I don't think our elected body, I have served on the board for 15 months and I have abstained from it every single time that we have met. And I will continue to do so, and that is no issue. But I think if there is general consensus with a few outliers as exceptions, that it should be removed.
And just for colorful commentary on my end, I will say my reasons. I also abstain. Every meeting I am on one side of my family, a first generation child of an immigrant. And then on my dad's side, my family goes so far back that I am I guess by default, a daughter of the American Revolution. So I've had military members and also seen the struggles of my family coming over as immigrants under asylum. And I will say that I think my reasons for doing it are because of a growth in empathy and awareness in the fact that things aren't, free and just for all. Plus, the pledge we say was amended in the 50s. So even military folks that did fight and die for this country didn't fight for this pledge that we say. So I will just add that caveat. It does tend to target one specific demographic, and that isn't reflective of our entire population. So that's my the thing that kind of sticks in my craw about it and my 2 cents, and sort of my reasoning for doing it and my reason for abstaining as well. So I guess barring, is there any other
I just had a follow-up comment.
Sure.
I just want to be careful and clear that we're not equating anybody's position on removing the pledge with, not being in support of our country or military. I think that is not, in my case, or typically the objection. People don't say, I don't want to say the pledge because I don't support the military and I don't support, ideals of this country. I don't think that the pledge represents everyone in our nation. And that's where my position of objection comes from. I have family that I support that serves in the military. Obviously, African Americans have had a unique, it's probably the understatement of the year, relationship with this country and ideals. And so the argument that if you don't want to say it, you don't have to, could also be, if you want to say it, you can say it to yourself. I don't support centering one perspective at the consequence or detriment of others. So I'm not going to ever prevent anyone from saying the pledge on their own. I don't know that we should set the precedent that it's an expectation or you have to display your decision to not do it. It others the people that are excluded in the first place from the pledge.
Yeah, I
Anybody
think that's
else?
fair.
All I have to say, I would be in support of us voting.
Was there somebody else that had a comment? Sorry, I didn't hear.
Any other comments from anyone we haven't heard from yet?
Yeah, if nobody else wants to comment. We had guidance actually from the Library Association that any resolution such as this one should be made public, be available, written, so that the public itself would have the ability to comment on it. Not that we get many comments here at the library board, but if we follow the recommended procedures, before this thing gets voted on, it should be written up, presented, so that the public can comment at the next meeting if they want to.
So I think I'm actually fully in support of having the public be able to comment on this and delaying the vote until next meeting. Is the minutes of this meeting and the recording of this meeting sufficient for public knowledge?
And the agenda that was out for a week saying it might be discussed.
So
It just says Pledge of Allegiance. It doesn't say it should eliminate it.
what would make this matter different than like choosing to vote on the hours after, it had been discussed one meeting and then moving on to the next one, like we have done in the past, has been past practice?
Past practice, yes, but you're our library guru, and it's
I
the
respect-
association that basically said for transparency, for public input, it is best practice to have a resolution that's available. In fact, Norina may even know this. I think it was passed by the legislature last year, was it not? That public bodies had to have notice for any kind of a resolution that is going to be voted upon.
No, Mike just told us that it's actually limited to certain votes.
Well, I was
correct?
talking about our bylaws. I don't know if there's anything in. about
Right, but
public
also I'd
meeting
like to
law.
point out, we've not been consistent on that, and I would respectfully disagree that I guess what would that accomplish? Are we gonna allow, like, this decision would not impact the public. It impacts the members of this board.
And I don't think that it was designed to make every resolution you pass take 2 meetings to pass. That's what you're saying, and that doesn't seem true to me.
And I think we heard from the library director that he doesn't want to say it. So I mean, I guess, what are we trying to hold on to and maintain by delaying a vote?
I would say maybe people from the VFW and places like that.
Barbara,
Us
respectfully,
organizations would-
we're one of 2 libraries in the area.
Where we are Guilderland. If this is what Guilderland wants, so that's a
And
different
I'm
story.
a
but-
board member, and I think that other board members here have expressed, I mean, I guess I don't understand. It suggests that if the public came out and said, we won't be there saying it, but we want to make you and people who are uncomfortable saying it because they feel like it alienates a portion of the community, but you need to say it anyway. I mean, I guess I personally don't know what would be benefited by delaying this vote. That's, I mean, I'm one opinion, other people can
What they-
disagree.
What,
And
what we
we've
could
not been
do
consistent.
is
So we
anybody
probably-
So is
can-
there a
Lead it,
motion
and those who
to,
didn't want to lead it, then fine. What was that, Kathy?
I just wondered if there was a motion to, I guess, eliminate saying the Pledge of Allegiance prior to library board meetings?
I just want to make it clear, I don't want it to be part of what I'm suggesting is it shouldn't be part of the agenda or the ceremony of it. Nobody, like Vanessa said, we can't stop anybody, just the same as we can't dictate a prayer at the beginning of this. Like, if this means something to you and it's very valuable to you, nobody can stop you from doing that, but it seems like the majority of us don't participate or disagree with participating. So it seems odd to have the majority almost like forced to out themselves like every meeting just to be like, I don't, do something I don't agree with.
So Elise, did you have a motion?
Yeah, I motion to strike doing the Pledge of Allegiance compulsory at the beginning of a board meeting.
Okay, like compulsory pledge, okay. Is there is there a second to that motion?
I second,
Is that Vanessa?
yes.
Okay. Okay, all right, is there discussion on this motion?
I guess I would just remind people that it's aspirational with liberty and justice for all. It's aspirational. As I said earlier, have we had flaws in the past and maybe we'll have flaws in the future? But that's why people are flocking to this country. 10,000 a day on the southern border is reported this past week, every single day, plus the people that they didn't even know across the border. So I'll leave it at that.
I respect that it's aspirational, but I think if anyone believes all people have equal justice and equal liberty in the United States right now, respectfully, I just think they're wrong. It does not exist at present. It's an ideal. I do aspire to it. If you want, I could give you some examples, but I think you can think of some. So.
Okay, is there further discussion?
Not for me.
All right, so the motion is to strike the compulsory pledge. I'll just take a person vote. Corey,
Yes.
Barbara,
Surprise, no.
Mike,
Yes.
Bill,
No.
Vanessa,
Yes.
Norina,
I'm gonna abstain.
Alish,
Yes.
and I'll say yes. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, it didn't pass. because we only have 5 yeses. 2 noes and an abstention. Well, I mean,
No, only 5 yeses.
Bailey, Shmi,
Yeah, can you
Sorry.
roll?
What was that?
I was just gonna ask, if, what's the process to have it put on the agenda for the next meeting when more board members are present?
Did it go under old business or?
I'm requesting that it not fall off of the agenda.
okay,
So I guess we just make sure it's part of old business, right? I don't see why we couldn't discuss it again.
Yeah.
Unless there's a rule against it.
so I don't know. It sounds like there's not a strong contingent to keep saying it, but well, we'll just cross that bridge when we come to it.
Given that we have, what do we have, 3 people not here tonight?
Yeah.
That there's more than enough people that it could potentially change the outcome.
There's also opportunity for
It's-
public comment.
Yeah, and it's not unreasonable to discuss it again when there's a fuller.
Okay. All right. Any more public input?
No public input.
Okay, if there's nothing further, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, Vanessa,
Okay, all in favor?
I.
Anyone opposed? Hope not. We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
I'm really
Thank you.
happy that you guys created
No, or
these, as inside stickers. I thoroughly appreciate that. So often you get the ones that you have to put on, stick on like your card. And that's enough for me.
Stick it on your window behind your
Yeah.
I always wondered why they did that, but now I.
Because this will go on the glass on the inside, which is a little
It's a lot
classier
easier to
than
remove.
a little classier than a cigarette.
And you got a problem with bumpers? Do you have a second? Sure.
Thank you for submitting that. He was so excited. I've literally been talking about this since I was